And I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter today than I would normally, because this is a day to celebrate and eat, and because it's such a special day for Wayfarers Unity Chapel, Founders Day. I did change the title just a little bit from Friends and Mentors to Teachers and Mentors. Our Wisdom Lineage is the title of it now. Teachers and Mentors, our Wisdom Lineage. I've been asking my friends, some of whom I believe are mentors, who their mentors are, and what does it mean to be a mentor? And they say, oh, it's you. And I'm like, oh, I'm so flattered, thank you. But honestly, I don't think it is me, because I've had mentors, I've had true mentors in my life, and I don't believe that I come close to the brilliance of their candles. The one who comes to mind, the first one who comes to mind, is a woman. Her name is Carol, and she was an instructor at Metropolitan Community College in Minneapolis back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. I was newly sober, and I was basically illiterate back then. And although I was on a college campus and I thought that I was a college student, I wasn't. And I didn't know that, though. I didn't know that adult education was not the same thing as being a college student. And I was taking remedial reading and remedial math classes at Metropolitan Community College. But I was on a college campus, and I told people I was a college student. I was very proud because I wasn't raised to attend college, and I had dropped out of high school when I was 16. So now I'm 22, and I'm a college student, but I really wasn't, and I really couldn't read. One day in class, Carol was handing back math tests in remedial class, math like 45, I think it was back then. I was really excited because I thought that I had done really, really well. And as she handed that paper back, I grabbed it and I looked at it, and my heart fell because there was red on it, and there was red everywhere on that paper. And I started crying. And my first, reaction is really that fight or flight thing, because that's how I was raised. And I was like, I'm getting out of here. This is stupid. And believe me, I was saying a lot of F words back then. And I was like, this is stupid. There's no point in this. I don't even know why I'm here. And I was starting to grab my stuff, and I was going to go, and Carol came up, and I was just standing up, and she put her hands on my shoulders, and she pushed me back down into my chair. And she said, where are you going? And I started crying again. I said, I'm never going to get this. And all of those things that I had been raised on, you're stupid, you're worthless, you're an idiot, you're never going to amount to anything. All of those things came flooding back to me, and I was just sobbing. And I was sobbing that kind where you couldn't get your breath. And it was like, one of those, and snot's just pouring down her face. And Carol just kept standing there, and she was patting my shoulder. And she said, okay, take a deep breath. And I took a deep breath, and I'd cry, and then she'd say, okay, take a deep breath, and I'd cry, and then she was like, okay. She goes, now wipe your face, blow your nose. She gave me some tissues, and I wiped my face, and I blew my nose. She said, now look in the upper right corner of this paper, and tell me, what does it say? And I looked, and in big red letters it said 100% A+. I started crying all over again. Then she told me to come talk to her after class, and so I did. And it turns out she was an adjunct instructor. She had recently received her PhD, and she was teaching in the Women's Studies department and in the math department. And she said, I want you in my class next semester. And I was like, okay, what class is that? She said it was women's literature. And I remember clearly, I started backing away, and I was like shaking my head. And I started to explain, I can't be in that class because I can't read. And she said, no, you need to be in my class. And so I don't know how she did it, but she got permission to allow me to sit in on her women's literature class. And let me say, this is, in my whole academic career, this is the most difficult class I have ever taken. I didn't know how to read. I had to read over and over and over again. And she kept saying, but what does it mean? But what does it mean? What does it mean to you? How can you apply what these women are saying to you, to you, to you? You know, who are you? And this is your life. And I didn't know all of that. And so I learned to love the work of Adrienne Rich, who died in 2012. And one of her earlier works was Diving into the Wreck. It's a small book of poems. And I just fell in love with that. That poem, Diving into the Wreck, talked to me. And now I see the metaphor of diving into the wreck, which is much like Thomas Troward's principle is not bound by precedent. But at that time, I didn't know that. All I knew was that this woman, Adrienne Rich, spoke to my soul. And Adrienne Rich was coming to Minneapolis. And I thought, well, that's really exciting. I wish I could go. But I didn't have a car, and I didn't have money for a ticket. So I wasn't intending to go anywhere. And then a couple of days before Adrienne arrived, Carol came up to me and she said, Adrienne is going to need a driver, and she has rheumatoid arthritis, and so she's going to need someone to assist her with her bags and her books. And I volunteered you. And I was like, I don't have a car. She goes, you'll be driving a rental. You're going to work in shifts. Don't worry, it'll be fine. So, so I did that, and it was one of the greatest gifts anyone had ever given to me. So here comes the real point of this story. I spent 3 days with Adrienne, and I was running her around town and taking her different places. She was staying at one of the big hotels in downtown Minneapolis, and I would talk to her and while I was driving, and I would ask her all these questions. And as we walked to her room, I would ask her all these questions. And one night at dinner, she invited me to join this group of people, and I was like, oh no, I can't do that. And I sat apart from them, and I remember watching these amazing women, these scholars and men, actually, these scholars and poets and artists, and there were some clergy people there, and they were laughing and eating and talking and drinking wine, and they were just having the time of their lives. And I thought, wow, one day, maybe one day that could be me. But I never dreamed it would ever happen. Anyway, so the day came and she spoke at Northrop Hall on the University of Minnesota campus, and the auditorium was sold out. This would have been in 1980, I guess, 81. And the auditorium was sold out, where people were everywhere. I had never ever been there, over onto the University of Minnesota campus. I'd only gone to the community college, and I was overwhelmed. And after she finished and we were walking, we left the stage and we were walking to the reception room, as soon as she started approaching, people would get quiet and they would just step away, and they created this path for her to walk through. I'd never seen anything like that in my life either, how one person could be so honored, and Adrienne was back then. And so I was walking behind her, and she stopped, and she hit the floor with her cane. And so I went up and I leaned in, and she said, "Walk with me." And so I walked with her through the reception. And then after the reception, and I took her back to the hotel, it was my last shift with her. And as we moved slowly down the hall to her room, I was asking her all sorts of questions about the book, A Dream of a Common Language. I was like, what now? And where do we go from here? And how do we move forward with the dream of a common language? And she was just kind of like, she just sighed because she was really tired. And we got to her door, and I took her things in, and then she grabbed a book and she wrote in it, A Dream of a Common Language. And she said, thank you. She gave me a brief hug and she pushed me out the door. And I was like, whoa. And so I stood outside of her door and I read the inscription, and it said, Bobby, I have done my part. The future is up to you. So as I grew up and I continued my education and I reflect on these experiences, I do not remember Carol's last name. And I've tried to find her. I've contacted many, many people in academia to try to find this woman and what happened to her. And I've never been able to thank her. And now I teach in a community college after a long time in administration and other things. And I feel like this is partly how I give back. But I've never been able to thank her for the amazing and life-changing gifts that she gave me. She encouraged leaps of faith and provided me with a foundation of knowledge I never knew existed. And the point is, I think, mentors are there to give us opportunities to grow, to gain wisdom, to set us on a path like Carol set me on, and challenge us. My latest mentor is Reverend Kathia Krebs, and she too has challenged me, and she's provided me with opportunities. She's supported me on my chosen path, even when it didn't work out. But I knew I was never alone. She never really left my side. She continued to support me, and she never, ever let me fall. And neither did Carol. And so I ask you, who's in your wisdom lineage? We've heard about some of those people today, one in particular, Rosemary. So who was there? How far back do you go to find that person who has given you the gift of life and challenged you to become someone better? Even though you may not have realized it at the time. In preparation for this Founders Day talk, I read some of Charles Fillmore's work. I actually purchased and read Emily Cady's Lessons in Truth, the textbook for unity. Dee was kind enough to send me a couple of paragraphs on the history of the chapel. And just a side note, since the first time I spoke here, I've been subscribing to the Daily Word. And your history here is really quite amazing. The dedication and loving care of the many who created this vision and have cared for it since the chapel's inception is quite stunning. And it's something to be proud of. And this is what we want from our mentors and from our teachers. In Lessons of Truth, Katie very eloquently states what I have been trying to say. She says, there is always less resistance by the mind when it is gently led into the truth than when its errors are directly and vigorously combated. I love that line. That's how I try to teach now. That's what Carol did for me. She goes on to discuss the differences between personality and individuality. And she says that personality is the human part. It's that external part which is governed by the intellect. And individuality is the term used to identify the real person, the heart. The more God, she states, the more God comes into visibility, the more individualized a person becomes. Or in other words, the more evident one expresses the qualities of God, the more individualized they are. One's individuality is that part of one that never changes its identity. It is the God self. I love that. This is a great book, one that I had not read before had I not been invited to speak today. And so here's another question. It would seem to me that the distinction or the difference is in the voice that we listen to. Do we listen to the external voices of the people of our culture? Or do we listen to what Katie calls that still quiet voice within and then boldly follow its suggestion? There is also this difference in some respects between a teacher and a mentor. They could be the same, but to me today, a teacher is a personality who encourages personality. Yeah, that's what I think today. And a mentor is an individualized person who encourages that bold leap of faith into the divine unknown. On this same note, Mark Nepo also encourages us to find our wisdom lineage and to name 3 who have provided you with the opportunity for individualization. To explore what it is in their lives and work that you count as part of your foundation. What have you embraced of theirs that you claim as your own now? In a poem from the book, In a Dream of Common Language, Adrienne wrote, "And I ask myself and you, which of our visions will claim us? Which will we claim? How will we go on living? How will we touch? Will we know? What will we say to each other?" I think these are the questions to ask and to answer. I agree with Nepo that a mentor is an integral construct of our foundation. They are people of faith. They are the ones who go before us and they pave the way. They're the ones who write our texts. They're the ones who build our chapels. They're the ones who challenge our core and encourage those leaps of faith. And today, here in Dillard, Georgia, here at Wayfarers Unity Chapel, we honor those who came before. And we become the ones that pave the way for those who are going to follow. Thank you, and thank you for letting me speak today.